What's up guys? In this video I'm going to talk to you about the coolest lizard you've never heard about. The Cuban False Chameleon. So this guy here is my boy Groot. He is a Cuban False Chameleon. These guys are not chameleons, they are actually anole species, and they're some of the bigger anole species, and believe it or not, they are not bitey or flighty at all. They are very, very chill, and that's why I think they are some of the coolest lizards that nobody's ever heard about, because I actually didn't find out about these lizards up until maybe like 4 years ago. And to me that's the craziest thing ever, because they look just so cool with that little beard they got going on here, and those independent moving eyes, and their overall coloration. Now these guys are native from Cuba, so they do like the tropical weather. They will prefer, you know, like a hot spot of around 90 degrees and a cooler side of around, you know, in the 70s is perfect. Higher humidity, of course, because they are tropical. So you're gonna keep the cage or the enclosure in about 60 to 80 to 90% humidity. That's why I house these guys out in here in Florida, because it's basically perfect weather for them. When you're housing these guys outside though, you want to make sure that they're not getting hit with direct sunlight, and that they have enough places that they could go and cool off, basically, if you are going to keep them outside. Now the way you want to house them is in an arboreal type setup. So taller is always preferred over longer, and basically they're gonna climb on all types of different branches. You could give them live plants. I like to use the pothos, and you want to make sure that they have some cord bark and places that they could hide underneath, even although that these guys are diurnal and they do like to stay out most of the day. Now if you're keeping these guys indoors, you're going to need a little heat bulb of around 50 watts. It's going to give them about a, you know, like a 85 to 90 degree hot spot. Like I said earlier, a cooler side in the 70s. You want to give them UVB lighting. It's very important. The rainforest type or the 5.0 is preferred. So in the wild, these guys are actually snail eaters and insect eaters. So in captivity, we feed a diet of mainly crickets, superworms, you know, hornworms, the canned snails from Zoo Med if they'll take them. We also give them Repashy grub pie, and they do great for us. You just gotta make sure you dust the crickets with calcium and D3. We use the calcium plus here from Repashy, and that's gonna basically round out their diet so they live happily and healthy. Now obviously when you're feeding insects, you want to make sure that you're gut loading the insects all the time. We gut load the insects with carrots, different types of greens such as collard greens, kale, turnip greens. That's going to add a lot of different vitamins and ingredients basically to your chameleon's diets. Not chameleon, Cuban False Chameleon, that's what I meant to say. Now Groot over here is a male, and you could tell because when they're bigger they'll develop those hemipenal bulges, kind of like every other lizard. But the cool thing about these guys is you could actually sex them right out of the egg by looking at their two little scales that they have here. Males will have these two bigger scales right around the vent area, and females will not. Now, like most lizard species, you want to keep one male per enclosure. The males will fight if kept together, especially if they're in the presence of females. Now, the cool thing about these guys is that you can house them in trios or pairs, as long as it's one male and two females, or one male and a female. And the cage requirements are pretty much going to be an 18 by 18 by 24 or an 18 by 18 by 18 for one single adult. Of course, with these guys and pretty much any arboreal gecko, the bigger the enclosure, the better. So if you can go a little bit bigger, I would recommend it. And they'll do fine in glass or screen enclosures. Personally, I have them in screen because they are outside, and I wouldn't want the sun to heat up the enclosure with the glass. So that's why they're kept in screen cages. Now, one of the main things you want to keep in consideration when you're keeping this species is their hydration. They are big drinkers, so if you're keeping them in a screen enclosure like this, you're going to have to mist them down all the time. You could even provide a dripper system with a water bowl in the bottom, and eventually they can be conditioned to drink out of the water bowl. Another thing that I absolutely love about this species is how docile they are by nature. These guys, I'm telling you, I do not handle any of these guys on the regular, but I could just go in there and pick them up just like this. They'll just sit on my hand, never try to bite, never try to run away. One of my favorite features about these guys is how prehistoric they look, with that huge head, that little beard on the bottom, which actually that's what got them their name, their scientific name, Chameleolis barbados. Chameleotis coming from chameleon, and barbados coming from this beard that they got right here with the little spikes. When they get angry, they'll actually puff this up and open up a big flap, kind of like all the other anoles, and you can see all their spikes, and they're just pretty intimidating. But most of the time they're just bluffing and they're not gonna bite. Now these guys, when they're fired up, they'll turn dark just like this one, but when they're not fired up, they actually turn a really light gray, almost borderline white, and it gives them a really cool look. Especially when you consider all these scales that are in different sizes, big and small, and just their overall prehistoric look. Alright guys, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like it, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and don't forget to follow us on Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for more updates. We will see you guys next week with a brand new video. 18 by 18 by 24 for a trio, or a pair for a trio. Wow. A little water bowl and a cat.